Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so I would like to take over. So for let's say from these quite broad and global view, what Alex was reporting to you, of course, and so I'm based in Singapore with a clear focus on high-speed engines, which we say usually are lower power range than the big medium-speed engines. So we're talking about a few 100 horsepower up to 4,000 kilowatts, so which is around 5.5 thousand horsepower. I mean, just to wrap up what Alex was saying, in the last few years, our company has conducted some surveys with the customers to investigate what is their expectation and their view on the future fuels. For example, in 2035, like this, and of course, hydrogen was number one. It was a very prioritized rank because this is, of course, you can see this is the let's say the hype or the trend, which is quite clear in Europe right now. So many companies are investigating this one. So this means for our company, the way to the decarbonization is actually set. So we are investigating in hydrogen topics in the technology, how to handle this, how to consider the infrastructure and so on. But the way towards hydrogen, of course, is long. So we also need to serve the market and the customer needs, which are from now on, which is like here is diesel and gas. There will be some intermediate steps. For my part, I will show you, or let's say tell you a little bit information about the biogas itself and biofuel, which are considered as intermediate steps between diesel as a fossil fuel towards hydrogen. Of course, this is quite related to the combustion engine, to the combustion process itself. So this means these fuels are, of course, accompanied by hybrid solutions. So it means we are talking about pairing the engine together with batteries, with alternator and generation of electricity, and also the exhaust gas treatment. So these topics I will not handle today. If I remember correctly, during the last presentations, Bosch actually was presenting a lot of good information about, for example, the SCR, the selective catalytic reactors, which is more or less cleaning the air or cleaning the exhaust gas and then reacting, having some reaction on the NOx, on the nitrogen oxides. First, before going into detail with some technical stuff, with some explanation about the fuel itself, just to show you what is actually the view of Thailand on fuels itself, on energy. And for example, this is a screenshot which was taken from a presentation, official presentation, which was uploaded to the internet by the Ministry of Energy. And for example, if we see the comment below, so the Prime Minister, during his speech at the Conference of Parties, which is related to the Paris Climate Agreement, was clearly saying that Thailand is pledging to 20 to 25% reduction in its emission of greenhouse gases. This is a clear sign that Thailand is heading towards the decarbonization. Decarbonization itself is, of course, is an interesting topic. So this means, are we considering the emission itself? So this means what is, for example, if we are talking about the combustion engine, what is coming out of the exhaust gas pipe, or are we talking also about the complete, the entire cycle? This I will show later on. And this is the other slide which I would like to share with you. According to this approach of Thailand's governments, so here's a clear alternative energy development plan, which is focused on the years from 2015 to 2036. And a lot of R&D activities and also of construction and power generation activities are also subsidized by the government. And that's why, as said before, I would focus here on the biogas itself and biofuel. Okay, so starting with the biofuel itself. What is actually the biofuel? In this case, I'm talking about the liquid biofuel. I'm not talking, because fuel, it can be everything, but I'm talking about biofuel, which is in liquid form. Actually, it's quite comparable with diesel in consistency. This is a liquid which you can fill up in the tanks and can burn in the engine. The question is where the biofuel comes from. So actually the biofuel is coming from chemical processes of the biomass from some renewable sources like soya oil, or can be an animal fats and tallow and so on. And so we need to consider, of course, how can we use this in our technology. What is the advantage? The advantage of biofuels is that the biofuel itself can be considered as nearly 100% CO2 neutral. And this is what I mean. Of course, during the combustion, there will be some CO2 production, but during the production of this fuel, the CO2 is absorbed by the biological processes. Regarding these projects, or say the market itself, in Thailand, we don't have that many projects which are right now focusing on biofuel. The requests from customers are rather coming from Southeast Asian countries like Malaysia and Indonesia, because the governments have a huge focus on palm oil. And of course, if there's an excess of palm oil, the government, the companies are looking what to do with this palm oil, because there's some ethical backgrounds about the palm oil, which I will show you a bit later. So the question is where the biofuel comes from. Of course, we are looking at where we are defining 4 generations of biofuel. So first, the generation of biofuel is actually the, let's say, generally spoken, is the edible biomass, which can be sugar, can be vegetable oils, can be palm oil, everything which can be used for food itself. At the moment, if we consider the amount of sources and the amount of the oil, this is currently 99% of today's biofuel. Yeah, that's why there's a huge focus on this one. Second generation is the non-edible biomass, which is actually coming from different types of feedstock. It could be some waste, yeah, so non-food crops, for example, some corn crops, which are not intended as a food for human being. Yeah, some biofuel is coming from animal waste or public waste and so on. The third and fourth generation of biofuels are actually, so to speak, the next scientific stage of the biofuel itself. For example, coming from algae and some specific engineering energy processing products, which we're not focusing on because it needs or requests more investment in technology and more investment in chemical processing. So that's why on the next slide, I'm focusing on the major part of biofuels itself, which is the first generation and the second generation. So the big difference between these 2 generations, of course, one of them is edible and can be used as food, and the second one is not edible. Yeah. So just to show you what is actually the pros and cons of the biofuel itself. In general, we can say that the biofuel itself can be almost fully renewable. So it's coming from animals, it's coming from plants, and which can be used for energy generation, and it will grow again. So this is like we're using wood for some specific purposes. And here same. If we're considering some chemical processes, which I will not explain here, but the combustion process, so the generation of CO2 is actually less if we compare with the fossil fuels. This is, for example, what we also found out during our recent test here in Singapore. So we're having a field test right now with a smaller engine on one of the pilot boats for Singaporean Port Authority, and we ran this engine on biofuel on our test bed in Singapore, and we measured the emissions. And quite interesting is that we have indeed some reduction of CO2, but depending on the source of the fuel itself, so we had a higher emission of NOx. Yeah, and this is, of course, we have kind of trade-off, which we see actually what is the higher focus. So on the one hand, we can see, of course, as long as there's a reduction is good. But on the other hand, we can also say we need to consider the IMO regulation about the NOx emission. And here we need to see whether we are still below the limits. From my point of view, it's always like this. Being below the limits does not mean we are environmentally friendly. And that's why biofuel is considered as an intermediate step towards hydrogen or towards CO2 free fuels. Yeah, but at the moment there's not, let's say, there's not that much possibility to apply very high-end technologies like hydrogen. Some other disadvantages, of course, if you see on the left side, the right side. So left side, we have a synthetic fuel, which is burning without any soot creation. On the right side, you see a lot of black smoke, which is actually FAME. The FAME is can be compared, for example, with animal fats. Yeah, and this is especially if we are operating the engines for passenger ferries or for larger vessels where we have people or we are in the harbor. So nobody wants to see the black smoke, of course. The other disadvantage of biofuel, for example, is because the source is a biological one. So we have a lot of bacteria, and we have also some growth of bacteria. So which leads to some other technological challenges. For example, so we're having sludge in our oil tanks. So we are having challenges with the sealing materials that the engines or coolers or pumps, they are getting untight, so there are some leakages, and this is what actually the operators, shipyards, and also the power plants have to pay attention to. Yeah, just to show you which engines, for example, in our case, which engines are able to burn biofuel. So we have, let's say this is a focus from my side, of course. So we are having the Mtb engines. Alexander was mentioning this MAN truck and bus. So we are also supplying these engines for very different applications, be it in a marine application for small ships, or be it a power plant somewhere on land. So these engines are able to burn biofuel, of course, considering all the technological challenges which we have to pay attention to. The newest generation of our high-speed engine is the 175D. Which is produced in a cooperation in our plants in Denmark and in Germany, in Augsburg. And the larger one, which is the power range is around 6,000 to 10,000 kilowatt, which is intended for bigger ships. So here we have some reference already in the market. So just as an example, you can see here two vessels. So the first one is the offshore petrol vessels in Indonesia, which is running on the biofuel with the 175D engine, and on the bottom you see a passenger ferry which is also running within Indonesia between two islands, and is powered by this kind of engine. And this is where the experience comes from, actually. So we have had some let's say children's sicknesses in the beginning, of course, so where we see there's some leakages of fuel because the sealing materials are not resistant enough. The customers or the operators, they had some challenges with the fouling tanks, with clogged filters, because during the life of the biofuel, even if it's only a few days, so we have agglomeration of some sludge, which is clogging the filters. Quite interesting. That's what I mentioned in the previous slide. So Malaysia and Indonesia are looking more at biofuel because they are also considered as the biggest manufacturers of suppliers for palm oil. And that's what I meant. So the palm oil itself can be used for as food. If you know Nutella, this chocolate cream, which I think is quite a famous one. So there's also a part of the ingredients is actually palm oil. And this is one of the ethical backgrounds of this. How can we burn the fuel itself, to create energy, whilst maybe there are some children in Africa starving to death because of hunger. This is the way how we should look at it as well, not only the technological view. Okay, there was a mix of marine engines. So now I'm coming to the industry technology itself, and so same engines with same size can be also used for some small power plants. And so in this way, I'm trying to get the transfer to biogas itself. Biogas is the chemical process is similar to what we have with the biofuel itself. So the biogases are actually coming from the biomass and the waste products. And just compared to biodiesel, of course, this is a gaseous condition. Compared to biodiesel itself, biogas has a lower emission regarding the sulfur and then the nitrogen oxides, which is better, for example, for the environment, for the air itself. Similar to biodiesel itself, of course, so we have a cycle which we can see the biogas is a carbon neutral fuel and can be considered as a full substitute for fossil fuels if the engine is able to run it. And because just thinking back to the slide which is showing you on the way towards the hydrogen, of course, the biogas itself can be considered as a bridging fuel. Yeah, as long as we are working on higher technologies. Again, similar to biofuel itself, biogas is coming through some natural processes which are more understandable from this slide. Actually, we see it can come from livestock. It can be just a biological biomass. This will be stored in a digester, yeah, where the chemical processing is ongoing and the gas is generated. The biogas itself will be purified to make it sufficient and make it suitable for engine combustion. The engine itself can run on gas, and depending on the purpose itself, the engine generates heat, yeah, or generates electricity when it's coupled with the alternator. So, and this is provided to the households, which again is considered as a CO2 neutral. Yeah, this is quite a simple illustration of the process itself. Quite interesting. So here's just for comparison. So how much biogas we can create out of livestock, and how much energy we can produce out of it. For example, if we are looking at one cow, so one cow produces, looking here ahead, one cow produces recalculated biogas 500 cubic meter of biogas, which we can use to produce 1,100 kilowatt hours on electrical energy. And to make it more, let's say, comparable, so we see one cow is approximately same amount of energy which can be produced compared to 100 pigs or 500 chickens. Yeah, and or 2 tons of corn cobs. Of course, we need to understand, so how much space do we have? Thailand might be different. In Singapore, such generation of biogas would be unthinkable because of missing space. Okay, for the Thailand power market, it's especially interesting because following this alternative energy development plan, which was introduced by the government, since 1992, actually the government is purchasing the electricity, the electrical power from small power producers, which can be, of course, of different applications. There are some regulations which have to be fulfilled by these small co-generators. For example, so they have to supply the electricity to the grid during the peak month, March, April, May, June, September, October. Yeah, and during the entire year, the production of electricity must not be less than 7,000 hours, which is a little bit advertisement for our engines. Our engines are capable to run this amount of hours. And to show you what is, for example, what are the references, more or less, which we realized over the last 10 to 15 years. For example, there's the main customer in Thailand are the farms, be it as a palm oil mills or be it the pig farms. One of examples, we are working with the farm which produces the electricity for their own purpose, and they have between 20 and 30,000 pigs in one location. Yeah, here you see the pictures, you can see how it looks like. So actually this is a tarpaulin, which is quite flexible, but this is bloating up like a balloon by the biogas. So biogas will be purified, as I showed on another slide, will be led towards the engine itself. The engine burns. the biogas is driving an alternator in producing the electrical energy for own purpose, for own utilization, and also to be fed into the public grid. So this is about the engines itself, to give you a quite general overview of what we can do with the engines. And as next, I would like to show you some other application what we have, a bit more general, of course, from my side, which we name as electric thermal energy storage system, which actually does not have nothing to do with the small engines, with the high-speed engines itself, but just to show you how existing technologies can be combined with each other. Yeah. For example, I think it's quite clear to many people who have at least a little bit of technical understanding how the heat can be generated, how the cold or the lower temperature can be generated in the electricity itself. So if we combine the different technologies with each other, so we can have some good synergies. And for this ETS solution, what we have here, for example, so we can, in case, just to show the first picture, so we have the charging cycle where we have the technology which can be combined with each other. For example, the isolated heat tanks or isolated ice tanks. And for example, during we have some excess of electrical energy, the energy can be fed into the system. Then we would generate some heat which we can store here. We can generate some cold which is stored in the ice tanks. We can use the heat for some district heating. We can use the cooling for example, for malls, for grocery markets to cool down the products. And let's say the second one is the big part is the discharging cycle. So when we don't need the heat itself and the cold itself, actually we can reverse the process and we can feed the electricity back to the grid. Yeah. So this is the storage system which we can use to not to waste the energy. Just a few technical details about this one. For example, so this is a modular design. So this means the equipments on all the devices, the components can be bigger, can be smaller. So we can make a plant between 10 megawatt hours up to 100 plus megawatt hours. We can adjust it, of course, to install it within the premises which are given to us. In this case, for example, we are also working with ABB, which is a good provider for automation system, how we can handle and manage the power itself. The good thing is with this system, this is geographically absolutely independent. So you could put it in a city, you can put it in urban areas without any restrictions. When we're talking about energy in excess, which usually cannot be utilized because nobody is using this, so this means we can store it for a specific time, and the efficiency can be up to 50%. And for this one, because we're not actually burning, if it's of course, if it's combined with, for example, the solar power itself, we're not burning any fuel, no biodiesel, no biogas, no fossil energy. And that's why the energy storage itself can be considered as a fully CO2 neutral. Just to show you the function itself, there's quite a good video actually on YouTube, which is takes only 2 minutes, and yeah, just pay attention to how the energy flows. Can I see?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for watching this video. I wanted to show you just, for example, there are different technologies which are actually nothing new in the world, can be combined with each other, to create more efficiency and then to use the energy in a much smarter way. So that's it for the ETS technology. And now we are coming to the conclusion slide, just to summarize and to wrap up what we have been talking about. I think it's clear to everybody, and then just to emphasize that defossilization is possible. Yeah, so we see with all our technologies, we can achieve lower emissions and we can increase the efficiency of the technologies of power generation, be it for marine application or be it for land-based power applications. Of course, there are a lot of challenges, because we are not there where we could be in maybe 20 years, but we are working on that, and regulations are coming quite regular from the governments. So there are safety standards which need to be considered. Yeah, Alex was, for example, talking about the ammonia itself. Biodiesel is, for example, same. If we have some leakage problems, we have to pay attention to. I would say one of the most important issues is, of course, the infrastructure. Right now, I see there's one question in our chat box. So this would be one of the possible answers. We have, of course, to consider infrastructure in each different country, because the infrastructure in Malaysia might be a different one than, for example, compared with Germany. What everybody of us, what we have to be, of course, we have to be open. Yeah, we have to dare to go with new technologies. Some of them are not known to us. We have to take the risk, and especially for some intermediate solutions like biogas and like biodiesel, there is a need to attach the carbon price to the development itself. Yeah, so this means if we are having some technologies which are still using the fossil energy, there's quite a correlation if we are paying some carbon fees. Yeah, because if we don't feel the commercial pain, nobody will invest the money to research for new technologies. And closing our presentation, so we have a lot of solutions which we can offer to all our customers across the globe. We are your partner, and we would be very happy to have partnerships and work on commercial pilots with you. Thanks for that.
Yeah, then I think it's my turn to thank Alexander Feindt and Viktor Brickmann for their very insightful presentations and comments. I think there are many things to think about and to consider also for Thailand. And I'm very happy that we have MAN here in Thailand. So you have colleagues here. You will be approachable also in Singapore and wherever. So I would like to encourage the participants to contact you and also want to reassure you that we will make the video of today's webinar available on our Clean Air Initiative website. So we can also make it available for people who couldn't make it today. So thank you very much, the two of you. It was great to listen to you, and I'm encouraged that we also will find ways to secure a green future here in Thailand, with also the support and the contribution from German companies here in Thailand. Thank you very much. And to all our participants, thanks for joining us, and hope to see you at the next webinar in November. Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon and good evening today. Bye-bye.